guys, this is Aisha from LCI, and today we're going to talk about property, and I'm just going to try my very best to ask the best questions for you. What people are asking me, how you can actually earn money from property and things like that, so let's see what we can find out. So if you could just quickly introduce yourself, just so people know what you do and who you are, what your name is and things like that.
Yeah, I'm the owner of Oxygen Property Partners, and my name is Jana. I used to live in London, but we are based now in Liverpool, and we specialize in HMOs. So we find HMOs for other people, and then we convert them into multilets.
Mm-hmm. So my name's Amber, Jana's husband, and we basically help people build a portfolio of multilets where people are sharing rooms in hotels, and we're having to pivot slightly because we operate in Liverpool where it's becoming a little bit more difficult, and we're getting a lot of demand for people that want independent units, but basically the skill set is the same: finding them, refurbishing them and letting them out, and another skill around finding the people who want to invest in them. And so you're concurrently either finding the money or finding the deals, and when the people who want the money find the right deal, you match them up. And then generally speaking, we get paid a small fee for finding them, a small fee for refurbishing them, and an ongoing percentage for letting them out.
Yeah. So, I mean, in this video, I really just wanted to kind of talk about, like, you know, when they keep saying that you can get into property like without any money, is that really possible? Can you really do that with absolutely nothing?
You can do it with nothing, but you are limiting your options. So this property, which looks like it needs a good refurbishment, right? We purchased this property exactly almost like 5.5 years ago. So I was going up from London to Liverpool, staying in a hostel because I didn't have very much money. So I was paying £6 or £7 a night in a hostel, sharing with 5 other people. I was coming up, and whatever money Jana would either make babysitting or whatever she was doing would go to my petrol, and it's come up and down. And so I got to know Liverpool a bit before I made tons of mistakes, putting offers in when I didn't have the money, burning money really. And then I came along and I saw this, and I phoned up the agent and I said, "Can you tell me why that property is so cheap?" And she said, "It has a regulated tenant." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Well, it just means that you can't ask them to leave, it's a long-term investment." So I said to Jana, "I'm going to see that property." And at that time, I had £20 in the bank and I had £100 overdraft, so I had £120 access. I put about £30 or £40 in petrol, so now I'm down to minus 20, and I've driven up, and unlucky, the car breaks down halfway there.
Oh no.
But luckily, I had a policy with the AA that meant that I only pay £35 and they take care of the rest, and there I am up there. And I said to the lady, "I'd like to view that." And so I got to know the auction lady, and I mentioned to her a couple of friends that I have, and she liked them, so we had some rapport. And we came and did the viewing here. I came to the viewing, and I did what the training course told me. I turned up half an hour early by mistake, so I had a good chat with the guy who lived here, and he basically told me, "I'm not leaving under any circumstances." And I said to him, "What? Even if I bought you a flat in south of France?" And he looked at me and laughed and said, "Maybe Portugal, the Algarve." And I took him seriously, and I thought, okay, so all I've got to do is get him a... But I looked round, then the auctioneer came, and the auctioneer had become a friend of mine, and he kept the guy here talking for 45 minutes as I went through every room, took photographs, and I said to Jana, "I really want this, regulated tenant, and instead of 150,000, it's now going for 50,000 because of this tenant." And at the time, there were 7 buckets of water, catching water from the outside ceiling. He had moved into this room. This was the only room he could operate from, and he was paying £320 a month.
Wow.
Instead of 950, or if you did it up nicely, you'd get 1,100 a month.
Wow.
And he was paying $320, and I said, "Yeah, I want this." And she said, "I just looked on the internet. It's really dodgy. It's nice." She said, "I had no money in the bank, no income, no savings, no assets." I went into the auctioneer and I said to her, "Instead of paying you £50,000, I want to pay 55, but ask them instead of 4 weeks, I need 12 weeks." She phoned them up, and they said no. And so I said, "Okay, don't worry, 4 weeks is fine." And then she phoned them up, and they didn't answer. And then I went in the next day, and she didn't answer. And then I went in the third day, she said, "Look, do me a favour. Leave your card behind, leave your details behind, and if he says yes, I'll take the money. And I said, brilliant. And then I realised that I needed £5,000 to exchange. So I phoned up my brother, God bless him, and I said, do you remember that money that you said you would pay for my marriage? Can I have it now? So all of a sudden, a promise he's made to help me out with my marriage, can I have the money now? And he said, give me half an hour. And he sent me £5 grand.
Oh wow.
I said,
I like to have a brother like that.
I've gone over and I've saved her £5 grand. I've realised something. If I'm minus 20 and she's going to take 5,000 plus the fees, 5,300, what if a direct debit goes out? Kind of that. So I cancelled all my direct debits.
Right.
Left it with her, drove down to London. After 1 hour of driving, she phoned me up, you've got it, it's yours. So now I've got 28 days to find £45,000.
Wow.
And I just knew that in the family there was about 20, 25, if I could get hold of it. But I didn't know where I was going to get another 20 from. Sat down in the hostel the next day or the week after, started writing a report, sending it out to investors and friends. And at one point, 3 weeks into the process, my mum's bank said, we're not lending to you. But we've been investing with you for 50 years. No, we're not lending you a penny. Look at her age. Barry's bank said no, tried everything, tried everybody. And then I find out there's a service charge of 160 a month. So that 320 income is like 180 income. And it had no central heating. It was not habitable. It was not habitable. The guy was living in an inhabitable house.
Wow.
And so Jana did support me, and my mum supported me, and we got to as close as we could. And I think it was about second week of December, or third week of November, or beginning of December. And I got a phone call from my cousin. But I just had an email from Barclaycard. They're offering me 10 grand at 0% for 12 months. Does that help? I said, it really helps. I put the phone down. My brother calls me. I've just had an email from Barclaycard. 0%. Does that help? Yes, it helps. Boom. Job done. And we inherit this property. Next problem is, 2 weeks after that, we get a letter from the council. We've just been in there, and we want you to put central heating. We want you to take the kitchen away and put it somewhere else. It's too small. And I got a list, like a 10k list.
Wow.
Anyway, long story short, we bought this property with literally with none of our own money. So it can happen. But I just think that the risks I took were unnecessary. I think I was lucky. And 2 years later, he actually voluntarily left. And along the way, I tried to do the refurb with a little bit of money I had. I got the wall skim. I had friends coming over that were selling this time for £60 a day. I had friends of friends coming over. And this was like 4 weeks before my marriage. And it was just not good, it was not professional, and you could argue wasted money, but in the end, 3 or 4, or let's say 4 years later, we got a mortgage that covered the whole purchase price, all of the service charge fees, 15k, we were all in at 85, and we got our mortgage for 90. So we got all of our money back and £5,000 on top. I wouldn't recommend it, but it can be done.
Sounds like a very stressful time.
It was stressful,
Oh
but you know what? When you were to go large, one of my mentors always says, the learning starts when you run out of money.
Yeah, because now we're in real need.
That's right. Yeah.
You need to just get it done.
And to be honest with you, now we've got the job ahead of us to do the refurb. We're talking to another mentor of ours today. He said, I would advise you to do it 1 room at a time and take 9 months rather than leave the house for 8 weeks and leave it all to a builder. Do 1 room. So I want to do the kitchen that they told me to get out of. I want to turn that into a bathroom first, turn the kitchen and do it one by one, because then you're in more control and we won't be throwing money down the drain and wasting time. But there are other ways to buy money with none of your own money. But I would say you've got to remember something. If you're going to do a transaction, somebody somewhere is going to pay a lawyer between £400 and £900. So it might not be your money, but it's somebody's money.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I would recommend people to do an option agreement without a lawyer involved.
Yeah.
Now, I've done it, I've done all sorts of things, but I wouldn't recommend. So when somebody says you can buy a house for £1, you can, with legal fees and surveys and all of that. And you could even hustle to get, I've got a surveyor that would do a deal with me and all sorts. But if you haven't got the money and you've got the time, you can do it.
Yeah.
And if you've got the time and you want to learn...
And the connections as well. Yeah, I think connections is...
Building those connections is key.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to replace putting some energy in, picking up the phone, taking action, even if you don't know what you're doing. Just honestly, just getting that momentum in and grabbing people along the way, as opposed to sitting in a training room for 2 years.
Yeah, of course. But what would you say really, like, where is the money really? Which part of the property journey where you actually can make the money? What would you say?
I think the start on a property journey, if you don't have any money, I would recommend for anybody to start by sourcing properties for other people. That's how we started. We came down from London and we knew where we want to be based, so we chose Liverpool as a place to be. And we started from there. We got a few other people that were helping us, how to do it. And we just, rolled our sleeves up, and we just, it's trial and error basically at the beginning. But
would you recommend that people actually pick up their skills by volunteering to somebody, or spend loads of money on training, or just read books?
Well, you could be maybe overlooking somebody else's shoulder, from the beginning.
Shadowing.
And then, then you get the confidence to do it by yourself,
But when you're actually in it already and you kind of know people and you are doing the whole thing, would you say it's better to focus on the deal sourcing? Is that where most of the money is? Or is it flipping houses that you would say is like where you can make most of the money? Or is it HMOs? Or what would you say? Which part of...
It's definitely a good strategy for if you've got 40k, 50k and you want to...
Yeah, depending on areas as well. There are not that many flips in Liverpool right now, so you really need to be careful. You should not be relying on it as a main income if you start doing sourcing or going on a property journey, because you will come across quite desperate if you want to close a deal or be looking something to earn the living out of it. You need to be working at the same time, have a job, and then maybe start slowly by sourcing.
So are you saying, for example, that if you want to flip, you've got to be really certain about the end buyer, what they're going to pay,
really
and how quickly you're going to sell?
You need to really be sure that you will be able to find properties in, like for example, Liverpool that you can flip, because there are not that many of them. And for example, a lot of people, coming here from all over the place at the moment, and the market is very hot compared to different areas. So you need to maybe go a little bit outside of Liverpool and just find your spot and then decide which areas you're going to be.
But what about like things like capital gain tax? Because I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he always says that you buy a house and you need to keep it, and you need to actually rent it out and keep it forever, instead of selling it on, because then you're going to pay a lot of tax, and that's going to take most of your profit, if not all of it.
So if you are flipping properties, you're not a landlord, you're a developer.
Yeah.
And lots of different tax laws apply to developers, don't apply to landlords.
Right.
But there's a way of doing it. So if you reach your tax limit as a person, you can do partnership agreements, you can do it through companies, you can do it all sorts. So I wouldn't let paying capital gains tax be a mind block. I would just say no, somebody who knows how to help you overcome those problems. Definitely tax laws change all of the time, but it's a nice problem to have.
Yeah, of course.
It's a nice problem to have. On your first flip, you're going to have loads of upfront costs that you're going to come away from. You probably would have spent money on training and this, that, and they would have all been deductible. But there is a cool thing that you can do as a developer that you can't do as a landlord. And I would just say, to be honest, if you've got a certain amount of money and you want to flip and you're not going to involve a bank, you can go with speed that you can't do with a bank. And if you're relying on a bank and something goes wrong, you could have a bit of an issue last minute. Would you say that there are certain areas in Liverpool that you can flip because of the postcodes and the buying price? If you buy at the correct price, could you not be sure that that's a good flip?
Well, in the good areas, the landlords know that they can make money by flipping the properties. So they are, in educated people, they would not sell it a song unless circumstances,
So is getting good at finding deals the answer? If you're really good at finding deals, then whether you flip them, whether you turn them to HMOs, or whether you sell them, just finding really good deals is a key skill.
I think the key skill is to have different strategies up your sleeve, and then not just looking for flips, but for different projects. And when they come along, then you know what to do with them. So I think just relying on one thing would be a long journey and would take maybe long.
And what are the actual numbers? Because I'm very sure that a lot of people are watching this video thinking, Yeah, but how much money can you really make out of a property? Let's say if you're talking about flipping properties. So I don't know, you have to invest. Let's say you go in with a bridging loan and stuff like that, and then you invest, I don't know, 10 grand because you called all your family members and you managed to get 10 grand. You put that into a property, you get a bridging loan, you refurbish it and then quickly flip it. How much is it really? What are the actual numbers? How much can you make?
My friend has just bought a property in the Wirral.
Yeah.
He paid 81.
Yeah.
He's going to spend 24 on it. He bought it on bridging, so he must have had, for 81 he must have had about 25, 30 of his own. He put the rest in bridging. The bridging person he used was like a friend who was a bridger. So it wasn't like one big company that he was waiting ages for. From the moment he completed till today has been 4 weeks gone by. He's almost finished it. He would have spent, including transaction fees and everything, he would have spent 30. So 81 becomes 120. And he's absolutely certain that he'll get an end valuation of 150. So a 30k uplift, of which he will hopefully probably leave no more than 10,000 in. And then he'll get 400 a month cash flow. If he were to sell it, he would have made 25. So with 30 of his own, 35, 40 of his own, then don't forget he's paying for the roofs. He would have used 50 in total, he's making 20. So his 50, he's making almost guaranteed 20 and hopefully 30. And at the same time as doing that one, he's completing on another one. Again, seat of your pants stuff, but he's doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
You can make 20,000 on a flip. And if you're unlucky, it becomes 10, and if you're very lucky, it becomes 30.
Would you say it's better to like cut costs, because you work with a lot of suppliers? So would you say it's better to cut costs and do some stuff by yourself, or always like get it done properly and then get a supplier to do it?
It depends. If you are on a deadline and you want to do it fast, and then you know, like on a budget, you need to decide if you want to do it on a budget, fast, or if you just do it on a cheap.
Would you ever manage your own tradesman, or would you rather use a builder?
I would rather use like a builder that I know of and can rely on.
Reliable.
You know, it's because it's really time consuming.
You know, doing that, all that scheduling of the trades, and it's really, really time consuming. And a good project manager is worth their weight in gold. But if you're not the personality to do all that, have you ever managed your own trades? You have, haven't you, on Western Avenue?
Yeah, but I just don't want to do it anymore. You know, like it's about timing, but you know, different people coming in and out, and you need to know, you know, what needs to be done fast, and they sometimes have to work together. And
I also think that a local scouser is better talking to all the trades than us.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you have a local scouser who's really good at screaming at people and shouting at people, that's what you want to do.
I think the problem I would have, I wouldn't understand what I say. I'm really struggling with that.
Yeah.
So now it's
but
like,
I think also that there are three types of builders. One is a big branded builder who's going to come in and maybe do things properly and really expensive.
Yeah, and they also do all the costings, and they are more expensive, but you don't have to manage them in terms of the admin. But then there are good builders that are not good in admin, where you have to manage them and do the invoicing for them, or you have to you know, support them a little bit in communication with the customer. But then they're coming on a budget, and you know, they sometimes want prepayment as well for the work. Whereas a bigger builder, they sometimes don't ask for a first payment until, you know, you get to the first fix of joinery or plumbing or electrics. So it depends what the client wants and what budget they have. And
so when you get a slightly budget builder, is there something that you have to do that's different? Like when you did Elm Vale, you used quite an expensive builder, but when you're doing the ones in blue collar work areas, you use a cheaper builder. Is there a difference in quality when it comes out?
well, as long as you know what the design is going to be, and as long as you tell the builder about, you know, right at the beginning about what you want, then it should be okay. Even if it's on budget, you know, it can look nice and presentable, as long as you just give them the instruction right at the beginning.
I think the big thing is that we once used a builder that we got from a website, interviewed him tons of times, and ended up him overtaking money that he had and made promises he couldn't keep. So I just think that making sure you have a team that you trust is really key.
Yeah, the power
And
team.
I would never ever go with a builder that I don't know right now, because, for example, some people in London, they think, oh, I will, manage it from London, and I will hire somebody like a builder in Liverpool, and they will manage it for me. But in my opinion, builder should never manage the project himself, because they'll probably take advantage down the line in terms of the payments, timings, quality. And I never met a builder who was the same and can deliver all the time the same product. So you have to be on top of them all the time. You need to tell them what design you want, otherwise they'll recommend you something they have in their own home. You have to, just...
I just really want to know, like, if you would be able to start it all over again, what advice would you tell yourself? Like, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, what advice would you tell yourself? How would you do things differently, or is there anything that you would do differently in this whole property journey?
I think that if I was going to do it again, I would have a plan of how I'm going to support myself for the first 2 years.
Right.
All right. I have a plan of how I'm going to support myself for the first 2 years, so that I didn't put myself under pressure to earn money either from flipping or sourcing. So a lot of people who flip already have a day job and they've got that worked out. I didn't. That's the first.
Yeah, but then the pressure was actually doing quite good.
The pressure was doing me pretty good.
Yeah, last time,
But I didn't have children or a mortgage.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I think the other thing I would say is leverage off other people. Don't try and do it all yourself. Don't try and learn it and make all your own mistakes. We got approached today by somebody who's talking to us about the possibility of learning from us and picking up like skills, key skills along the way, and then turning that into learning to then accelerate her own journey, and I think that's what I would do. I would literally grab hold of people who needed 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, and I'd have done it that way, because I think any other way is a bit of a risk. But what would you say? How would you
did you start a property earlier like that, or how many years have you been in property?
About since 2008, I think I started overlooking his shoulder, and then I used to come to this London networking groups.
And then shortly after that, we did a master's degree at university, so we had to stop.
And then, because I was passionate about design, I wanted to do always something in property, and I wanted to always own my own home. So I thought it would be a great way of starting by doing holiday lets, because it was my background in tourism, and I thought it would be a great way of starting my property journey. So I sort of talked to him, and then he had the idea to talk to his brother who had this flooding cap in Junction, and that's how we started. We improved it a little bit, and we got some clients in, and at the time, the tourism industry was quite booming, so we had, made really good profits with his brother. And
I remember when you actually did the refurb for that. She had like a budget of £800. She bought a glass table, some nice chairs, cushions.
Yeah, so,
great.
Yeah, and we got like actually a professional photographer to come and who then took the photographs for the marketing, and I think that's the key if you want to
well presented.
Yeah, for marketing.
Property,
and for the online, portals. Since we've been doing it, we then decided to go to Liverpool, so we couldn't do it anymore, but it was a great first experience, and this could be like for somebody who's never done anything like this, like a nice starting point as well.
It was quite a low risk way of starting.
To take on one flat and see, how it goes and improve it, and then put it on the portals and take the money on behalf of the client, and then be responsible for the money.
We've had times when we've double bookings, so 2 people booked on the same.
Because you mentioned holiday lets. So is it Airbnb that you mean?
Airbnb.
Airbnb. Is that the way to go now? Because I think we live in like an Uber and Airbnb world where it's like digitally people are booking. Is that the way to go?
Well, the last 3 months, the last year, a lot of service accommodation people have had to pivot. And I know a lady who runs an entire service hotel in London, and a lot of them have gone on to single lets.
So, but that's because of the coronavirus and the current climate.
But I think the answer is You've got to do what works at the time. And I know people doing Airbnb in the last year have pivoted. They've gone on to construction workers, doing really well. If you're asking a question about, is it about owning the assets or owning the technology that brings people together, I think the future in lettings belongs to people that can definitely step up to the problems that we've got in the industry.
I think there are plenty of landlords that could do with help. You know, you don't have to necessarily own the property. You can approach landlords and say, how I can help you, you know, improve it. And
so that would be property management then, a bit like.
No,
well, I mean, if somebody owns a property, then there's a number of things that they need to do to be successful. Not just letting, finding the tenants is one, decorating is another, supplying them with all sorts is another. So pick your passion, pick your dream, and just go for it. But I do think that helping other people to run their properties is a valuable skill if you want to run your own.
Because a lot of people actually don't want to get into property because they don't want to be the landlord who's being called at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning so that my toilet is, you know, is leaking, and then you need to just go and that's why they're looking for somebody who can manage the property for them. So I totally agree with that.
And also there are some people that don't want to use an agent because of what they think they're like, that would use somebody's services if they reinvented the industry a bit. So there are people now doing Airbnb that wouldn't have done it before if that software didn't exist. And there are people out there that won't use letting agents but would use this hybrid bit of software where they're talking to that bit of software, and then you get a phone call from somebody saying, is it okay if we do this, and it's sort of halfway. You've got to solve a problem that nobody else has solved. And that's all you've got to do for the rest of your life, is solve other people's problems creatively. Today we're managing properties. Tomorrow we might be supplying them a slightly different service.
You just have to keep changing.
You have to keep being
you need to see where the demand is.
And this is where the very big high streets find it a little bit difficult to do, because they just can't quite move quickly enough. I spoke to some friends of ours who used to own Win-Win Lettings, and now I think it's called Staykeeper. And when we first met them, there were 7 of them in a big rent-to-rent in an office, and they were doing Airbnb, Booking.com, and they were doing, and then they were doing scale, and they had this system where all of the improvements in the property arrived on day 1, and the DIY guy arrived on day 2. In 4 days they got everything done, and that was then. And now they have just had a £20 million valuation on their company, and they've had a £500,000 investment on their company, and they only talk to people who have got at least 10,000 units.
Wow.
So, and 7 years ago they were sleeping in the back of a car in Glasgow. So they've solved the problem, they've pivoted, they've got people on board, they've done it their way, they've done it a big way, but they're solving a problem and they have competitive advantage and all sorts. I'm not saying that's what everybody wants to do. They're actually not really a letting agent, and they're not really service department, they're somebody in between. And now instead of having an average stay of 4 days, they have an average stay of 28 days. Some people are doing 3 months, some people are doing 2 months, some people are getting a refurb done and they need another place for 2 months, and that's what they do. And it's in that segment they do it.
Yeah, I would actually like to just close this video, because this video was really about just the financial part of the property. So I just gonna ask you one more question, and that's gonna be like just a yes or no question, really.
All right.
I'm interested in your opinion. Do you think property is the best, one of the best investment opportunities that you could have out there? What's your answer?
I think yes. If you want to change your career, like if you have, for example, a financial background and you want to do a bit of something more creative and work with people, it could be a good vehicle, because there are so many ways you can go and make money in property, but you just have to adjust with the time and the politics.